Hello everybody, it's Chaos King 1236, and I'm here to talk about the new rules and reveals from the latest V-Jump that's going to really shake up the world of Yu-Gi-Oh! No matter where you are, TCG, OCG. So let's just get into it. First up, they're announcing the newest extra deck monster type, which is called Link Summon, as well as a new regular monster type called Cyber's type, which is basically the internet. So Link Summoning is pretty damn simple. Basically, you don't have to concern yourself about levels. All you need is that you have the amount of monsters required that meet the materials of the Link monster. So basically, it's like fusion without any fusion spell. You can just do it. Or you could just call it Bring Out Your Link Monster. The only minorly complicated part about it is that if you already have a Link monster on the field, you can use a Link monster as multiple materials for a higher Link monster. Basically, their Link is down where their defense should be. They can't be switched to defense mode either manually or by card effect. So Book of Moon, Quaking Mirror Force doesn't do crap to them. They have to stay in attack mode. As for what cards that interact with something based on its defense value, I don't know. We don't know anything about that. But anyway, the Link monsters, where their defense goes, they have a Link number. Decode Talker, our new ace monster for Yusaku, has a Link of 3, and it says materials 2 or more effect monsters. Now that means you can either do 3 effect monsters, or you can do a Link 2 effect monster. Heck, you could even do 2 Link 2 monsters. As long as you meet the materials, them being effect monsters, all that matters left is the addition of monsters. Either 1, 2, 3, or 2 plus 1. Now for the crazy part. You can only summon Link monsters as well as all the older extra deck monster minus Pendulum. You only have 1 monster zone. This zone here, either of these 2 zones can be yours. You pick one, and that one is yours, and the other one becomes your opponent's. It becomes part of your field. Only extra deck monsters can be summoned to that zone. Extra deck monsters cannot be summoned to any of these zones unless you have a Link monster here. Now, which of these zones you're allowed to summon extra deck monsters to, in addition to your extra deck monster zone, is determined by these little arrows. Let's go back. These arrows here, and here. Decode Talker has them in the bottom left and right and on top. Now, that means in the zones to the bottom left and right and directly above can have extra deck monsters summoned to them without the restriction of the extra monster zone. Now, this also means Decode Talker specifically lets your opponent have a regular zone that they can special summon extra deck monsters to, which is a bit of a downside. And it looks like Link monsters are going to have, or at least not all of them, but several Link monsters have effects based on the monsters linked to them. Decode Talker's effect, it starts at 2300, which you'd think is sort of low for anime ace monster of the protagonist. But it has the effect of it gains 500 attack for every monster linked to it. So if there's a monster to the bottom left, bottom right, or on your opponent's field directly above, it gains 500 attack for each, meaning up to 1500, which would put it at 3800 attack, which I'd be willing to bet we're going to see in the first episode, or whatever episode Decode Talker is first summoned in. I have a feeling the big turnaround with it is going to be based on that. But that's just guessing. Anyways, so we have link markers on all 8 cardinal directions of the card. Out of the 5 or so Link monsters they've announced so far, they all have very different positionings. Also, note that you can have them on the east and west sides of the card, which is a further example of linking. So, say I put a Link monster with link markers on the east or west in here where Dark Rebellion Dragon, if they'd had markers here or here, in addition to the other zone here that I can summon extra deck monsters to, the link spreads to here or here, meaning I would have 1, 2, 3 other zones that I could summon extra deck monsters to. Now, this, regardless of how this turns out, unless they give a lot of retroactive support, this is going to kill so many decks. A lot of decks. Including a deck that I'm rather fond of at the moment, Paleozoic Frogs. Because they like to turn out lots and lots of rank 2s. And that really bugs me. I feel like there were so many other ways they could have implemented this. My best idea, at least in my opinion, would have been, instead of making link monsters, they would implement links in general and create Link Xyz, Link Synchro, and Link Fusion monsters, and create super generic versions of those that you would have to summon to the extra deck zone before you go into your other extra deck monsters. Instead, we got these link monsters that, I mean, they're not the summoning method is easier than Xyz and Synchro, but it doesn't play well in my head. It just doesn't. Overall, I like that they're trying to slow down Yu-Gi-Oh! As a game. I just wish they could have taken it slow instead of nerfing every deck in existence. Even the decks that don't rely on your extra deck monsters, like main deck focused decks like Cosmo and Spiral, ritual monster decks like my Cyber Angels, even they get minorly hurt by this. But the meta gets absolutely destroyed. Except for Zoodiac. Because they don't need to do this. They can churn out monsters without having to use multiple zones for their extra deck monsters, because they can just lay it on top of them. Plus, they get the buff of having an Earth Link monster in the form of Mrs. Radiant, which I'll probably put somewhere in the corner with a description. But basically, of all the meta decks out at the moment in TCG or OCG, Zoodiac, the one of the most broken ones, got off with the least punishment, which kind of sucks. Let's put a pause on that rant and go back to the rules. In addition to the extra monster zone and the main monster zones, pendulums also got a bit of a nerf in that their pendulum zones are gone. Instead, those pendulum zones coincide with your leftmost and rightmost spell and trap zone, meaning that you have to pick one or the other. The one thing they haven't clarified about that is if you've got a pendulum monster in one of your new pendulum zones, like say you've got a pendulum monster in your leftmost zone, can you still use your rightmost zone as a spell and trap zone, or do you have to put it as you cannot set or activate cards to that zone anymore except pendulum monsters? That they haven't clarified on. I'm assuming you can use it as regular, but I do not know. Konami has told us jack all. They did do a small Q&A here, like spell and trap cards that are in the coinciding pendulum zones are not affected like cards that would be, like Wavering Eyes that targets cards in the pendulum zones does not affect them unless there's a pendulum monster in them. Because unless there's a pendulum monster in them, they are just counted as a regular spell and trap zone as opposed to a pendulum zone. So overall, I'm really nervous about this. I feel like everything just got turned on its head, and the only solace we have is that we have several months advance notice. I would need to look up when Code of the Duelist the first set of this new series with all these Link monsters comes out. Along with, there's a starter deck coming too. OCG, on the other hand, has several fewer months to advance, so they're probably freaking out and trying to come up with new strategies and combos that will implement these new Link monsters. Overall, I really hope that they give a lot of retroactive support so that they aren't killing off so many decks. Literally, the only decks that get off unscathed are Tribute Summon and Ritual Summon. Or rather, not the only decks, but the only summoning styles that get off unscathed are Ritual and Tribute Summon. I'm just not sure what to expect from this. I hope they give a lot of Link monsters in the new pack, because we're going to need them. We are going to need them. Anyway, I just really hope Konami knows what they're doing, and I would never say this is going to kill Yu-Gi-Oh! Because that's probably been said about Ixies and Synchros before when they first came out. I'm never gonna just assume this is going to kill off the game, but this feels like a big middle finger to all their players. It just feels wrong. Slowing down the game, I get, but killing this kills bad decks as well as good decks. This prevents certain decks from functioning at all. And I just really hope the transition goes smoothly. Anyway, this has been Chaos King 1236 with rant/information video on Link summoning and the new rules of Yu-Gi-Oh! That are going to come out with Code of the Duelist. I hope you weren't too turned off by my ranting. If you got any questions or something like that, there is a very good paste in just describing all the rules and simplifying them, maybe better than I did, that I'll see if we can put in the description. If you like our videos, give us a like, maybe a subscribe if you want to see more, and check out our other videos that we've got in both Yu-Gi-Oh! And other games and whatnot. Thank you and have a nice day or night or whatever, and goodbye, everybody.